For 25 years, Japan ruled the world's car industry. Toyota, Honda, Nissan. These names means reliability. They meant quality. They meant trust. And then China happened. Last year, for the first time in history, Chinese car makers outsold Japanese ones globally. Not by little, by over 2 million cars. But here is what nobody is telling you. This story is not just about China winning. It's about Nissan trying to avoid bankruptcy, Honda desperately trying to merge with a dying rival and failing, Toyota buying Chinese parts just to survive, and India, your country, sitting right in the middle of the biggest power shift in automotive history. In the next 20 minutes, I am going to take you inside the full story. Buckle up. Let's go back to 2008. That year, Japanese car makers had nearly 31% of China's entire car market. Almost 1 of every 3 cars sold in China was Japanese. A Toyota, a Honda, a Nissan. Fast forward to the first half of 25. That number has collapsed to just 9.6%. Think about what that means. Japan didn't just lose some market share. They lost 2/3 of their Chinese customer base in less than 2 decades. And China is world's largest car market. We are not talking about a small country. We are talking about 30 million cars sold every single year. So what happened? Well, the short answer is China figured out how to make cars. Not just cheap cars, but genuinely good cars. Faster than anyone believed possible. The longer answer starts with a company you may have heard of called BYD. BYD, which stands for Build Your Dreams, was founded in 1995 as a battery manufacturer, not a car company. A battery company, that's important. Because while Toyota was spending decades perfecting the petrol engines, BYD spent decades mastering the one component that actually matters an electric vehicle, the battery. By 2021, something shifted. BYD introduced new technology, slashed prices, and launched more new models in a single year than most companies do in a decade. The result, in 2025 alone, BYD sold over 2.19 million cars in China, making it single best-selling car brand in the world's biggest market. That's more than Volkswagen, more than Toyota, more than anyone. And they did it entirely with electric vehicles. Japan didn't just fall behind one area, they fell behind in the area that is now defining the entire future of transportation. Now let's talk money, because this is where it gets real. Toyota, the world's #1 car maker, just reported that its net profit fell 37% in a single year. 37% gone. Honda, even worse. Honda's net profit didn't just fall, it was cut in half. Operating profit down nearly 50%. But the most dramatic story of all is Nissan. Nissan's operating profit in just 6 months crashed by 94%. 94%. The company that once was Japan's second largest automaker, the company that made the GTR, the Z car, the petrol, was, according to some analysts, facing possible bankruptcy as soon as 2026. So, what did they do? They tried to do what desperate companies always do: find a bigger partner. Honda and Nissan announced in late 2024 that they were planning a historic 60 billion merger. The idea was to combine forces, share technology, cut costs, and together fight back against China. It collapsed. The talks fell apart in February 2026 over one brutal question. Honda wanted to make Nissan a subsidiary. Essentially, Honda wanted to absorb Nissan entirely, and Nissan's executive said no. They called the proposal, and I'm quoting here, outrageous. So, the merger is dead. And now Nissan is getting a loan, cutting 9,000 jobs, shutting down factories across America, Thailand, and beyond, slashing production capacity by 20%. A decade ago, Honda and Nissan were both valued at about 4.6 trillion yen each. Today, Nissan's market value is nearly 5 times smaller than Honda's. These are not small tremors. These are earthquake-level shifts happening inside companies your parents trusted with their money for decades. And the question everyone is now asking is, can Toyota survive what Honda and Nissan couldn't handle? Here's the part of this story I found most fascinating. China's rise in the car industry was not an accident. It was not luck. It was a plan. a very deliberate, very well funded, very patient plan. It started with the Chinese government deciding in the early 2000 that electric vehicles would be their weapon of choice. They knew they could never beat Toyota at petrol engines. Japan had 50 years of expertise there, but EVs were new. The game board was blank and China decided to own it. They poured billions into subsidies for EV manufacturers. They built charging infrastructure across the country at pace that stunned engineers worldwide. They created a domestic market so competitive, hundreds of companies fighting for customers, that it became essentially the world's most intense automotive testing ground. By mid 2025, more new energy vehicles were being sold in China than petrol cars. For the first time ever, electric outsold combustion in the world's biggest market. And Chinese companies now develop new car models in as little as 18 months. The global average for traditional automakers is 4 to 5 years. Think about that. By the time Toyota designs, tests, and launches one new car, BYD has already launched 3. Now there is part that will really surprise you. Elon Musk was once asked about BYD in 2011. He laughed. He said, and I'm phrasing, "Have you seen their car? The technology is not very good." By 2020, when that same clip was shown to him again, Musk had completely changed his answer. He said, "That was many years ago. Their cars are highly competitive these days." When Elon Musk admits a competitor has beaten him, you know something extraordinary has happened. But China's rise isn't just BYD. 6 of the world's top 10 best-selling electric car vehicle brands are now Chinese. Chinese automakers now produce over 70% of all EVs manufactured on the planet. And now they are not just selling inside China anymore. BYD is targeting 1.6 million vehicles sales outside China in 2026 alone. They have new factories opening in Hungary, Brazil, in Indonesia. They have billboards all across Europe saying, "Made in Europe, for Europe." The plan is global and it is moving fast. Now, I promised you the full truth. And the full truth means I have to tell you something that most creators covering this topic are ignoring completely. China is starting to face its own crisis. And here is what's happened. There are hundreds of EV companies inside China right now, all fighting each other for the same customer. The competition is so brutal that they have been in a non-stop price war for 2 years. BYD cut prices by 10 to 20% on multiple models in 2024. Other brands went even further. The chairman of Great Wall Motor, one of the China's biggest car companies, publicly warned that an quote, "Evergrande of auto industry could blow up." He was comparing the situation to China's massive property market collapse. He was warning that some car companies would go bankrupt, and the numbers back this up. China went from essentially zero EV companies to hundreds in just few years. Most of those hundreds are burning cash. Most of them will not survive. Even BYD, despite its incredible sales numbers, is dealing with rising inventory, squeezed margins, and a home market that is getting harder and harder to make money in. That's why they are racing overseas. The domestic market isn't as profitable as it looks from outside. And here is one more twist that matters for a global audience. BYD is completely locked out of the United States. Trump's tariff of over 100% on Chinese vehicles make it economically impossible for BYD to compete there. This matters for brand power because America has historically been the proving ground for any automaker that wants to be taken seriously globally. Toyota earned its global reputation by beating Ford and Chevy in America. Honda did the same. BYD has never competed in America, and that, for all its sales record, is a permanent asterisk next to its name. So the picture is more complicated than a simple China wins, Japan loses narrative. China is winning, but China is also under enormous internal pressure, and that creates an opening for Japan, but only if they move fast. Here is where this story gets incredibly personal for anyone watching from India because Japan's survival strategy runs directly through your country. Let me give you the numbers first because they are staggering. Between 2021 and 2024, Japan's direct investment in China's transport sector collapsed by 83%. 83%. In the same period, Japan's investment in India's transport sector jumped 7 times over, reaching nearly 2 billion last year alone. Japan is not just reducing investment in China, they are running towards India. Toyota has announced over $3 billion to expand its southern Indian facility and build an entirely new plant in Maharashtra. The goal is for Toyotas to tell Indian production capacity to exceed 1 million vehicles. Toyota's president himself said, and I am quoting directly, the Indian market is extremely important and is set to grow in the future. Suzuki, which dominates India with nearly 40% market share through Maruti, is planning an 8 billion investment to double an annual production from 2.5 million cars to 4 million. Honda owns its entire India operating outright. That's rare for a Japanese automaker anywhere in the world. It signals serious long-term commitment. Why India? Because India offers everything China once offered. Low cost, a massive and growing labor force, improving manufacturer quality, and a government that is actually protecting its market from Chinese competition. India's protectionist stance towards China is, as one analyst put it, a blessing in disguise for Japanese carmakers. Toyota has also started doing something that would have been unthinkable 5 years ago. They have begun sourcing EV components from Chinese suppliers, their own competitors, to cut costs by 30% and build more affordable EVs for markets like Thailand and South Asia. Think about that. Toyota is buying parts from BYD's supply chain just to compete against BYD. That's not weakness, that's pragmatism. That's a company that has decided if you can't beat them entirely, use them. Toyota has also partnered with Xiaomi, yes, the phone company that now makes cars, Huawei, and Momenta for smart vehicle technology in China. And here is the big secret weapon that most people are not talking about: solid state batteries. Toyota has invested $13.6 billion into developing solid state battery technology. These batteries promise a 750-mile range on a single charge, with charging under 10 minutes. If Toyota cracks this technology by 2027 or 2028, as they are claiming, it completely changes the game. BYD's entire advantage right now comes from mastering lithium-ion batteries. If Toyota skips ahead to the next generation of battery technology, BYD's advantage disappears overnight. That's Japan's long game, and it's a real one. So, let's bring this home literally, because this global war between China and Japan is not happening somewhere far away. It is arriving in India right now. Chinese car makers already control 33% of India's electric vehicle market. 5 years ago, in 2019, that number was 0%. Now it's one of 3 EVs sold in India. MG Motor, which is owned by China's SIAC, has been selling cars in India for years already. You have probably seen them on the road. BYD is planning to launch its Auto 2 in India in mid-2026. Priced between 17 and 15 lakhs rupees. That puts it directly against the Tata Curve EV, the Hyundai Creta EV, and the Maruti e-Vitara. For Indian buyers, this sounds exciting. More competition means better cars, better futures, lower prices. But there is a reality check. One Indian BYD owner shared publicly after an accident, not even a serious one. It took 40 days to get his car repaired, because every single part had to be sourced from China or a limited depot in Chennai. When you buy a Japanese car and it breaks down, there are service centers everywhere. Parts are available within days. Mechanics know the car inside out. Chinese EV companies are still building that infrastructure in India, and until they do, that 40-day repair story is a real risk for real customers. So the honest answer to should you buy a Chinese car is it depends on whether you are willing to be an early adopter with all the rewards and all the risks that come with that. The Chinese cars will get better. The service networks will improve. The prices will keep failing. But for right now in 2026, Japan still has trust advantage in India that China cannot simply buy overnight. And Japan knows this. That's why Toyota and Suzuki are doubling down here. Because India is the one market where the Japanese brand name still carries enormous weight and where Chinese brands haven't fully cracked customer trust yet. So let me give you my honest take. The world's number one car maker just reported that its net profit fell 37% in a single year. 37% gone. China has won round one of this fight. The data is clear. The factories are built. The cars are selling. But this is not a knockout. Not yet. Japan still has Toyota, the most profitable car company on earth, with 200 billion in cash, solid state battery technology in development, and a serious India strategy that is only getting started. Nissan may be dying, but Toyota is not Nissan. And the real battlefield, the one that will determine who truly wins this war, is not China, it's not America, it's not even Europe, it's India. India is about to become the third largest car market in the world. It is the price that both Japan and China are now running toward at full speed. And for Indian consumers, for you watching this right now, that means more choice, more technology, more competition, and ultimately better cars at better prices. The question is, who do you trust with your money? Drop your answer in the comments right now. Team Japan, Team China, or Team whoever makes the best car wins. I will personally reply to every single comment in the first hour. If you want the follow-up video on whether BYD is actually safe, because there is a story that nobody in India is talking about, press the subscribe button. That video is coming next week. I am Tridip. This is Underwood Hub, and I will see you in the next one.